I'm Cole.
And
Nice to
I'm
meet
Cam.
you. So you're probably wondering what these two yahoos on the screen are up to with this chameleon.
This is Spock.
This is Spock. He's named Spock because chameleon hands are like jointed into two different
Right
groups.
in the middle. Cole and I have separate backgrounds in animal interactions, animal care, animal education. I spent 5 years working at the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Nebraska, because I lived kind of near there, and it was a manageable commute, and something that I was really passionate about doing. And my family had always been really avid visitors of the zoo. So as soon as I was able to, I started volunteering there. I was an educator, and I taught the public, and that was in topics of the special identifying traits of different animals, such as we could talk about chameleon vision, or how they change colors, or how they walk. So different things that were unique to different species of animals. We also taught about conservation and ecology and wildlife preservation. And
You just
You're
decided
okay,
that
buddy.
Cameron was his mortal enemy.
I'm scary now. I was not 30 seconds ago, but I am now. I also spent a lot of my childhood wanting to be a paleontologist, which is kind of like archaeology, but in the field of prehistoric life and fossils. So, yeah.
So it's somewhat similar, kind of different. I grew up on a farm my whole life, which is a bit weird because typically you don't see chameleons and all the other animals that we have on farms. I assume I haven't been in the house of many farmers, but it's not typical as far as I know. And on that farm, I learned a lot about like how to work with animals, how to make them sort of work with you rather than against you. Sometimes farmers get a bad rap when it comes to animal care and those sort of things, but typically you only hear about the bad cases. But typically, a lot of farmers know how to work with animals rather than like force them to do something. They make the animal sort of want to do that thing, either with like food or things like that. So I learned a lot about like what's going on in the mind of animals. What are they thinking? How can you tell from the little interactions, the position of their ears, or the way they move their head, or things like that? So I got very good at reading animals. And with that, I grew up, I always wanted to be, when I was in kindergarten, I remember my teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I told her a paleontologist. And first off, she was like, first off, can you even spell paleontologist? Which, I mean, I obviously at the time I couldn't. But that was what I wanted to do ever since I was little. I love dinosaurs, and I find that every kid bases their personality, every boy bases their personality off of like one of three things, and that's cars, sports, or dinosaurs. And I never grew out of that dinosaur phase. But essentially, I fell in love with learning about animals, learning not only about the species but about the individuals, because every animal is different. And as I grew up, I continued with that passion. I wanted to be a zookeeper after a while. My dream job would be to be a zookeeper at like Jurassic Park or something, but we're still waiting on that. No one's reached out to me about that yet. But I did also have a passion for education. I became a teacher, and I love teaching about animals and their interactions with the world around them. And that sort of brought us to where we are. And we kind of met not in relation to that. It just kind of happened that we both had similar interests in that area. Me and Cameron together.
Cole and I
That's, yep,
together.
grammatically correct. So in 2020, obviously, the world sort of shut down. It was not a good time for most people. And we went to a pet store. He does kind of match the logo. Check it out on our website at spocksanctuary.org. All one thing. So we went to a pet store. And at that pet store, we saw, well, initially we wanted fish, right? We saw all kinds of cool fish, and we sought out, this is just naturally, we were just talking as we walked through this pet store, and we saw all kinds of cool fish. But what I found we tried to do is, as we were looking for fish, we were gonna make a communal tank, and we were naturally just started picking out fish that had things that were wrong with them. And that majority, and what I mean by that is they got picked on by the other fish in the tank. What I mean by that is like fiddler crabs, the ones with the big claw and a small claw, right? Ones that had their large claw removed by another crab, or that were left-handed instead of right-handed, like most fiddler crabs are, because Cameron is
I'm a lefty.
is a lefty, which is also why we sit like this, is because, you know, you're like writing or something. Not important, but just so you know. But after debating, we decided that maybe that wasn't for us. Maybe we weren't meant to be fish parents. And we've both been interested in reptiles for a long time. And there was 3 reptiles in this store. It was mainly a fish store. There was 3 reptiles, and that was a leopard gecko, a crested gecko, which are typically very
different.
They're
Very
different,
common.
but they're common in the pet trade. And then a chameleon, which I have never seen in a pet store before this point. They're pretty common nowadays, though. But that chameleon was Spock. And I jokingly said, wow, it's like their hands are like Spock's hands. And she's like, well,
That's his name.
that's his name. And when we were at this pet store, we asked all kinds of questions. We asked about the size of the enclosure, which at the pet store, they had I think it was a 20-gallon tall, actually. Not a lot of floor space, not a lot of height, about 1.5 feet in height.
It was mostly glass and basically a mirror image enclosure of the crested gecko that was next to him.
With that, neither enclosure, the crested gecko or the chameleon, had branches at all.
He had a rock, one very large rock that sat kind of at a angle, and he sat right up here at the top, holding on with his back feet. And he stood upright with his hands close to his body, and pictures that the pet store had posted of him from weeks before then, he was in the exact same position as he was in when we got there that day.
They set him up with sort of dirt, some fake plants, that ramp rock thing, and then a water dish. I was like, cool, that seems easy enough. So we got Spock, brought him home, replicated exactly what we saw in the pet store. Now, anyone who has gotten into exotics from an animal they saw in the pet store knows how this story is going to go. We started doing our own research. Now, when we first started our research, it was to see how we could supplement the information we got from the pet store. Now, that information, we soon found out, was a little bit faulty, to say the least.
That's being generous.
So when we got home, we found out a couple things. 1, glass enclosures aren't great for chameleons. 2, they don't need a 2 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot enclosure. They need a 4 foot tall by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure at minimum.
Water dishes.
Does not drink from water dishes. They can't perceive that that's water. Actually, the cask on their head, the little triangle shape, is used for them to get running water to funnel down towards their mouth. The problem is, for however many weeks he was in the pet store, there was no running water. Yeah.
You can also, if we get him angled right, you can see he's got a little bit of bulk to that cask. That is where they store their extra
water and nutrients. And his was completely
sunken in. It was about paper thin. And that was kind of how we knew that something was wrong.
In addition to that, his eyes were a little bit sunken in, and there was just not much to show for what he had, water-wise. We quickly began to realize that the pet industry is used to sell products and not to sell or to find homes for animals per se.
And they do that, but that's not their intention.
Yeah, and realistically their goal is to sell the animal, not to match it with the best home per se.
We didn't know anything about what we were doing at the time, so
Not a clue.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything we were getting ourselves into.
should they have sent us home with Spock?
Definitely not.
No.
But are we glad they did?
Yes. One of the first things that we realized was that he's holding the bone. Is that chameleons need to have moving water to be able to drink because, based on their vision, they're visual hunters and they need to see movement. So a water dish wasn't going to work for him. And the next thing that we realized was that a glass enclosure is not great for chameleons because they have sensitive respiratory systems and are very prone to upper respiratory tract infections. We bought a water dripper on Amazon, and in the meantime, I set off to go make a DIY water dripper that would hold them over in the meantime. And Cole got to work on making a hand-built screen enclosure for Spock. So
Which
that,
will attach pictures right
Mhm.
here. It's got 2 front doors. Cameron can dance the entire YMCA within it.
it's a big boy enclosure.
It is more than double the size that is recommended for like the minimum enclosure size. Also a huge fan of Jurassic Park, hence the Spock themed or the Jurassic Park themed
The
Spock
nameplate.
sign, Spock nameplate thing. It's got a drawer for any excess water from dripping, as well as a layer that separates urates and feces, and then another screen that keeps the actual chameleon out of that. So there's like 3 different levels within that drawer. So it's pretty decently complex, especially when I didn't have a whole lot of carpentry experience at the time. I think it came out pretty well.
Of course you would.
If I were to change anything, I would have applied more sealant. Obviously, Spock's story is a very interesting one, and it's a story that a lot of people can understand, and that is that it's really easy to want this pet because it's cool, right? Chameleons are notoriously a very difficult reptile to have, even if you've had reptiles before, because it's so different. And he was our first, so it was a quick learning curve, and we realized how upsetting that is, because if he had went with another family, there's potential that he would not be with us today. Obviously, he wouldn't be with us, but you know what I mean. So why is this story important? Is a question. It's very important to us, and that's because that allowed us to sort of get a different perspective on everything. And Spock's story made us realize all of the other stories of animals that aren't so fortunate. And we realized that the pet industry is so focused on animals that we can anthropomorphize or sympathize with as humans because they have human-like qualities, like big eyes on puppies and things. And we realized the pet industry is built off of animals that are cute and that are easy to sell. And so that led us to create Spock's Sanctuary in the namesake of Spock, after his story. he allowed us to sort of get a perspective on how we can make the pet industry better. So what does Spock Sanctuary do?
Ah, yes.
So at the basis is a rescue. There's rescues all over for dogs and cats, but there's a lot less for reptiles. We are
located in Iowa, and there are some other rescues that are in Iowa.
It's a labor of love. Like we love working with these animals. We love finding them homes that will care for them and want the best for them. But we can't do that. We don't feel like it's right to, ask for an unreasonable amount of money for animals, because the goal is to find them a home. So through the feed formulations and then any products that we sell, that allows us to fund the vet bills for any rescues or feed these animals, as well as like donations and sort of other aspects of things.
Right. We also do education. We're hoping to kind of broaden our reach with that, with this channel here. So far, most of that has been just people coming up to us or us seeking out other people and interacting face to face. But we're hoping to build up a better online presence so that more people can learn from us. We sell resources for animals. So one of the big things is light bulbs. What light bulbs do you need for different species? And in enclosure kits, a lot of times the wrong light bulbs are available in those enclosure kits. And so we will sell people the specific combination of light bulbs that they need so that they don't have to figure out what to do with the red bulb and what to do with the coiled UVB and what to do with the bulbs that aren't actually needed for their animal.
I could tell you what to do with the red bulb. Let's put it in the trash. But we seek to be a source of, I guess, resources for people, and that comes in the form of information, that comes in the form of education, that comes in the form of finding the animal, as well as finding everything you need for that animal, and being able to trust that source. In the early phases, obviously, we could just be two yahoos on the internet telling you whatever we want to, but we seek to build sort of the reputation of we're not trying to sell products, we're trying to find these animals the best homes possible, and while doing it, educate the owners.
Sorry.
Yeah?
Yeah, I fixed my hair and he did not like it.
Okay. With that being said, if you would like to check out our website, check out all of the things within that, whether that be donations or our services or even adopting an animal.
SpockSanctuary.com, not
Spock.org.
SpockSanctuary.
That'll be in the description, as well as our Facebook page. We have a TikTok. I said that like an old man. You kids and your TikToks. We have an email.
We have an email if you want to reach out with any questions. We're happy to answer them.
But we thank you for checking out this video, and
like and subscribe.
like and subscribe. But we know this isn't the typical video that we're gonna make. This is a really real video, but we hope to inspire people everywhere, and we're glad that you chose to join us along this journey. Sorry, it was a little more emotional and sad.
There will be more fun content coming after this one, but this is why we do what we do, where all of the fun content comes from.
It comes from the heart. In here. Oh,
Spock doesn't like
Spock
that.
does not like
not
hearts.
enjoy people that have hearts.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Please check out our other things, and above all else, we hope that you enjoyed. Hey guys, obviously I look a little bit different than I did in the last clip, and Cameron's not here for this part of the video, And the reason for both of those things is that this recording is actually coming months after the last one was ready to be released. And there's a good reason for that. Basically, we were ready to go. I had videos ready so that way I could start releasing them as the school year started, because I teach during the school year and I didn't know what that would look like as for recording time. And so I had a couple videos ready. I was ready to go. We had this amazing video to start off the YouTube journey of Spock, his story, and how it inspired us, right? But shortly after we were ready to release this video, a wrench kind of got thrown into the works, and I felt like it was important to talk about in this video. Shortly after recording that video of introducing Spock and his story, he ended up passing away. Now, we don't know the details of it, but we do know he was getting up there in age. And the hard thing with chameleons is a lot of reptiles can live a really long time, but chameleons are kind of a live fast, die young species. So when they die at the age of 6 to 8, as a max lifespan, you'd never know when your last days with them are going to be. And you can sort of gauge from their behavior when they're starting to slow down and those sort of things. But the bottom line is that we didn't really know how old Spock was, because of how long he spent in the pet industry without being sold. He was kept in these small environments. He wasn't given the proper care. And so we had no idea if he was actually as old as he looked, or if he was stunted or malnourished, or any number of things. But it's safe to say Spock lived a full life. I mean, he spent the good last few years in an enclosure, 4 foot wide, 6.5 foot tall, and 2 foot deep, like this mansion of an enclosure. Completely custom built specifically for him and his situation. And nothing can really prepare you for, changing so much of your life around an animal that inspired you this much, to change the way you think about the world around you, and to think about how you can make it better strictly because of an experience that you've had with an animal, and then losing them so quickly. It's not something that you can't prepare yourself for it. I wasn't really sure how to end this video, and there's not really a good way to talk about it, but I felt it was important to address with you guys. And I hope you guys will be understanding of the awkward pause in between releasing this video and, its recording. Because we didn't want this transition to be awkward. But there's no good way to talk about it. I hope that despite all of this, despite this loss, you guys will continue to be a part of this journey with us. Because while Spock may be gone, his message will continue to live on. I didn't expect to end this video talking about something that's so hard to talk about. I mean, it's literally taken us this long to even feel comfortable talking about it. But we know that what we're doing is something that not only we're passionate about, but something that can make animals like Spock's lives a lot better. Thank you for watching. And I hope that this message, that Spock's legacy can continue to live on through not only us, but through you guys. Thanks for being a part of this journey with us.